We're full?
Oh,
we're back.
We're on.
Okay.
I don't know. Little bug or something?
I've never seen that before.
Yeah,
So nyomong means klesha, means mental affliction, and nyenyun means secondary mental afflictions. So these follow after the 6 primary mental afflictions, which, as we just said, were really 10, because the 5th one included 5 more, right? Got it? Okay.
Yep.
So, do you know why these are called nyenyun, why they're called secondary? Anybody hazard a guess? They're really, really close to the main afflictions, but they're not quite as powerful. But don't think that you get off the hook if you have one of these and not one of the big ones, because really the secondary ones just kind of lead up, right? See, the good news is if you can get rid of a big one, you don't even have to worry about the secondary ones. But we learn these because actually, how many are there in total? Do you guys remember? 84,000. Exactly. And we focus on the top 6 or the top 10 and then the secondary 20, because if we can get these out of the way, the other ones will come tumbling down. The homework says name and describe any 6 of these. So Geshe-la says after you learn these tonight, pick your favorites. Okay? And these are kind of interesting. So we're going to go through all of them. The first one, say troa. Troa is, now does it matter if this thing fades out or is that okay? No, it's okay. It's just getting a little bit duller.
I think it's fine.
Okay, because I know on Farah's computer we have to keep.
It actually worked through.
Through it?
Because I watched it.
Okay.
Yeah,
And what you
it still
saw us go
works. It's
pushing
just
the
that
button?
The display is going to sleep. That's
Okay,
all.
excellent.
It just needs
Yeah.
TLC. Just a bit of TLC.
Okay.
But yeah, it's there.
Thank
Computer
you.
isn't going to sleep.
Just,
Yeah.
I'm going to sleep. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Oh, very
So troa is translated as anger. But it's not the same as the primary mental affliction of anger that we talked about last time. Okay? Do you remember what the definition of that primary anger was? Like what makes it such a big affliction? And actually, Geshe-la doesn't even like to call that anger. He calls this one anger. Ignorant disliking. Yeah. It's really about disliking things in an ignorant way, which is the root, right? It's the ignorance, it's the misperception that causes the anger. So troa, this is the prelude to hurting someone, to causing harm. It's the first few minutes of anger. Remember, we're going into the secondary afflictions now, right? This is the feeling that will, if left unchecked, will grow and will inspire you to say or do something harmful. Okay? So the second one, say kunzin. Kunzin, Geshe-la says this is actually a hard one to translate. It's when you hold on to your anger over long periods of time. So you can call it bearing a grudge or retaining anger. So troa is like the first 1 to 5 minutes, right? And after that, the object of your anger or the apparent object of your anger isn't even in front of you anymore. Maybe it's 5 days later and you're still seething. That's kunzin. Okay? Say tsikpa. Yeah, sometimes years. No, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a really nasty one. This whole, because very, very often, if the person were to come back into your life and you were to talk about it, they might not even remember. They might not even remember what they said or did to upset you, right? Is that Lama John in the new haircut? Okay. The class is waiting for Lama John and the new haircut. Okay.
Is it next week?
I did.
Surprise! Just joking. Come on in. Yeah. Oh, you Rachel? Yes. Okay. You're renting the space? Yes, I'm renting. Okay. Leonardo will take that.
Okay. We're going to keep going with class. So tsikpa is, we're still on anger. Okay, so choa is the initial stages of anger. Kunzin is the retaining, holding on to the anger. And tsikpa is, you could even call it pre-anger. It's those little prickly feelings of irritation.
Mm-hmm.
So tsik literally means to burn something. And it's where you're just starting to get hot. It's where you're starting to get hot under the collar, right? And, you know, your heart starting to beat a little bit faster. This is what this is. It's irritation. And the main function of tsikpa, if it burned long enough, is to make you say or do something stupid. Okay? So the fourth one, say namse. Namse is translated as malice, but really it's a state of mind where you decide you are actually ready to hurt someone. So it's malice, but again, we're still talking about shades of anger, right?
Is tsikpa preceding choa?
Yes. So all these, we're going almost in a reverse order now.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's anger, it's holding on to anger. Although, I don't know, you know, those are kind of neck and neck, right?
Yeah.
Tsikpa is the irritation, and then the namse is the malice that leads to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Malice is really nasty, though, because malice is where you really do want to cause the other person suffering, right? You really do want them to suffer for some reason.
I don't get the difference between namse and choa, actually. I don't feel it.
Well, they're all flavors of anger, and choa is defined in this list as anger. Okay? But malice has kind of an edge to it. Malice is when you wish someone ill. And anger is just, you're just mad. You're just
Okay.
ignorantly disliking or the situation or whatever, right? Okay. So then, trakdok. Say trakdok. Trakdok. Now, Geshe-la says this is his specialty, but I do know he says these things just for our benefit. Trakdok translates to jealousy. And interestingly enough, this is still a flavor of anger. So jealousy is an inner disturbance of the mind where either out of some sort of gain for yourself or honor, you cannot bear the sight of someone else's happiness. That's the definition of jealousy, actually. You know, we think about being jealous of someone, right? Like we really think about it in the context of a relationship or in the context of a competition over something that you want. And actually, Geshe-la has used this in the context of relationship. Like if you are a bodhisattva and you are in relationship and your partner is speaking to someone else and they both appear to be happy and you're jealous, like that's just such a wrong feeling to have if a bodhisattva is supposed to want the happiness of everyone, right? So it's insidious, but it's a natural ripening, and we need to catch it. So it's a disturbance of the mind. It's the part of the mind that wants attention paid to you and not to anyone else. It's a form of anger that it's really, really insidious because it could even be not so much that you want it yourself, but you just don't want the other person to have it, right? And it's very, very sick for anyone who is aspiring to be a bodhisattva. But you know what? Where this is rampant is in Dharma centers. It is actually rampant in Dharma centers, and we are a Dharma center, so we have to be very, very careful about this, about how the ripening of whatever we feel when we see someone else getting something that we wish we had, or even just someone getting what they want. Like, you have to be very careful about watching your mind. It's very rampant, it's very common. It's a mental illness, actually. It's a mental affliction, and we're all susceptible. We all are. So we just have to be extra watchful of it. If it comes up, it's a ripening, so don't feel guilty about it, but stop it, And you know what I think a quick way of stopping it is rejoicing. Like, immediately, even if you have to fake it till you make it, like, be happy for the object that you think is causing you that moment of ripening. That's my own sort of commentary to this, but because it is rampant, because it does happen a lot, what are you going to do about it, right? So that's just one quick thing you can do. But again, the deeper lesson is that when you are on your cushion and you have quiet time and you do revisit that or look at what brought that to you in the first place, to then look at the real causes, knowing that that object cannot be the cause of your jealousy. They are just the delivery system, right? So, you do that kind of unpacking when you have more time. But in the moment when the feeling comes up, I say just try and rejoice for something, for someone. If not for them, then pick someone else, and just boot that thought out of your mind as quickly as you can. Or make sure that you write in your book right away. That's another really good, useful purpose for the book, is to have it as a instant confession. Okay, so the next one is, say, gyu. Gyu is translated as insincerity. And it's an insincerity where it's kind of a denial, where you are not, it's not that you're not aware of your faults, you just don't want to admit to them. And it's about not being sincere. And this is really interesting. If you have gyu, if you have an inability to not only acknowledge but admit your own faults, this will have the function of blocking you from understanding whatever it is you're trying to learn. So it's one of the causes for not being able to learn, because you don't think any of the information applies to you. So it's like being the pot with the lid on. The wisdom just can't get in. So this is gyu, and it's translated as falsity or insincerity. The next one, say, yowa. Yowa means to put on good qualities that you don't have, like pretending to be very holy when you might not be quite so holy yet. Pretense is one way to translate this. And the reason you pretend you have these spiritual qualities is because you're hoping that other people will like you better, or praise you, or think more highly of you for some reason. Okay? Yeah, some sort of gain, some sort of, you think it's going to be, because obviously karmically it's not going to, but that's why we do them.
Are they flavors of lying?
These are actually secondary mental afflictions. Just
Yeah, these two, you and Yoa, it's kind of lying.
I think obviously lying would be a part of it, but it's not labeled as a form of lying. I think whenever we suffer from a mental affliction, there is some element of lying, either to ourselves or to someone else, right? I was thinking about that quite a bit recently, and even though it's not inherently, sexual misconduct is a form of lying, but it's not considered a downfall of speech. Mm-hmm. It's considered a downfall of the body. But if you truly are committing sexual misconduct, you are lying to your partner or to their partner or to your friends or to yourself, right? So a lot of the major afflictions have branches, have other things that can complicate it. Absolutely. So the eighth one, say ngotsa
Notsa.
mepa.
Mepa.
Ngotsa mepa.
Not some.
So ngo, and it's that weird, the tongue goes up against the back of your palate and you kind of go nasal. Yeah, ngo. Ngo means your face. Tsa means to be hot. So this is the definition of to blush. When your face goes hot. Yeah. And it's a metaphor for the feeling of shame. So mepa means you actually don't have it. So it means that you don't have shame. Well, yeah, shameless. When you should. It's shamelessness. It's about not having a conscience that would stop you from doing non-virtue. Because you're not ashamed, right? It's so it's actually useful to have this ngotsa capability to actually feel that you would be embarrassed if you did a non-virtue. Like the two qualifications that you'll hear in the Bodhisattva vows, they talk about shame and consideration. This is difficult from guilt, okay? Not difficult, different from guilt, okay? It's not about guilt. We've already clarified that there is no Tibetan word for guilt. There is word for shame, and what that means is that you would be embarrassed, you would be ashamed of yourself, watching yourself doing that thing. Consideration is that you would be embarrassed, ashamed of what others would think in terms of disturbing the peace of their mind. So in consideration of what others would think, or again, it's not what they think about you, it's like how it affects their mind. Like if you're causing them to have a mental affliction, then that's like a doubly bad karma. Not only are you doing the thing that you're doing, but the ripple effect is that you're, by the very act of what you're doing, someone else has to have a mental affliction. Okay, so this is the consideration part. I'm kind of digressing because this particular secondary mental affliction is just about the shame part, about not having it. So yeah, Sevi, it's the shamelessness. Okay. The ninth one, say trelme. This is the second part. This is the lack of consideration. Okay. So sometimes the long version. So this was nodza mepa. Sometimes this is trelme mepa, like not to have consideration, not to have the what did I say? The hot of the face, right? Yeah. So the nodza mepa is where you lack shame, and trel mepa or trelme is where you lack the consideration of what others would think of you if you did something wrong, if you did something bad. So it's the lacking in consideration. Both of these, by the way, are from the Abhidharma system. The Abhidharma Kosha is a big part of the monastic studies. It's where we learn about karma, too. 10th one, say chappa. Chappa is translated as hiding your faults. So in the earlier one, we were saying not admitting to your faults, right? This one is actually hiding your faults. And Geshe-la says, a practicing Buddhist should be an open book. It's, we're working on, we're not perfect yet, otherwise we would be Buddhas. Well, maybe you are, but for my benefit, you're pretending to actually want to hear what I have to say. So I am practicing. So I still have faults, and I am still trying to purify, and I'm still trying to plant the virtue. And this is a hard one, admitting my faults. But you know what? Way easier when you do. Way easier to purify, and way more disruptive. And I hear a lot of people have trouble sleeping. I think one of the main causes of trouble sleeping is when your mind is so busy trying to cover for itself, and trying to come up with excuses and reasons for things. basically, whatever faults you have, whatever faults I have, I am working on it. I'm trying to fix it. That's what we should be doing as practicing Buddhists, but we shouldn't be trying to hide them. In the monastic system, a monk actually breaks a Vinaya vow if they have, or it's not that they break a minor, if they have broken a minor vow, it's much better if they confess it. That's why they have these sojang sessions, right? Like we confess our wrongdoings as quickly as possible, because as you know from karma class, the longer you let something go, the more it multiplies in the power that it has to come back and bite you in the you-know-where, right? So it's the quicker you actually work the antidote, or the quicker that you write it in your 6-time book, or the quicker that you actually confess it, the less damaging a bad karma is. And in the Vinaya, they do say that it's very, and that's why they have regular confession ceremonies around the moon, right? Twice a month. And that's why they teach us as lay people the 4 forces, or they teach us how to keep our 6-time book. Actually, in your 6-time book, 6 times a day, you are doing the 4 forces. You are purifying when you make your confession, and when you try and think of something to do. That's your antidote, right? So if you've got this chapa, this hiding your faults, it's another form of denial. Yes, Leonardo.
The 2 month on the moon, which cycle, the full and the new?
I have to remember my notes. Who in here can remember the sojang? It's on the...
I think it was in the full moon.
Was it the half moon and the full moon? You know what? There's a calendar in the kitchen that has sojang on the dates.
And it was full moon when you did.
Yeah, full moon and half moon, I think, right? Or is it full moon and new moon? New moon. Michael knows.
Okay, which is what I understand.
So this is so bad. I know it when I teach it, and then if I don't have my notes, that's really bad. But we do have a Tibetan calendar from the Howell, New Jersey monastery, and all of the sojang dates are on there. Now, you don't have to wait for a sojang to do a confession, okay? So it's useful to clean up. It's like cleaning up the conscience. Yeah.
Would you say this is like falls into like the distraction, because you were saying people can't? You think this is why people have trouble sleeping? So it's kind of a form of distraction.
It could be, and I don't say that this is why people have trouble sleeping, but I do think that one of the reasons people have trouble sleeping is when they've got things on their mind, right?
Yeah.
So
I didn't mean to say that it was like the only reason.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But definitely, well, all of these are distraction from virtue. All of them are wasting your time in a big way, right? Because they have you. In this case, it's not that you're focused on anything good or bad. You're actually in denial of bad qualities that are standing in your way. So if we were to actually just admit them and do something about them, it would be a lot less of a distraction. I guess you can call it that. But see, it's not distracting you from doing something. It's preventing you because you're not even admitting to it. But it is an obstacle, right?
Denial to me is like you don't even know. So
yeah. But this is
So, but this implies that you know you have faults and you're intentionally hiding them.
But you know, it's something what Lotta said earlier too. It is a form of lying. Like denial is when you're lying to yourself, right?
Yeah.
So.
But you don't even know.
Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But right, if we get really good at denial, we don't remember we had them, but they could still be there. We just got really good at hiding them. So.
Yeah. Because I've been in a place where I'm doing all these things and I don't even know, you know.
So the useful thing.
Is it intentional or not intentional? These.
Well, I think a lot of these things. It's a good question, but if it's intentional, to me that indicates that there is intent and that you could do something about it if you chose to.
Okay.
And so, You know, I think at a certain point, all of them, you have a choice in it, but the fact that it rises up, you actually don't have a choice. It's the result of a cause that you planted before. So, and this is what we talked about last time, right? Where every ripening had a cause, but every ripening is a cause. So by the very fact that you hide your faults, whether it's intentional or not.
It's just what your response is. Okay. It's what your response
But
is in the moment.
it is,
That's what
but
we're
by
talking
being
about.
aware that this is a secondary mental affliction, if you, just by that very knowledge, you then shed awareness on our tendencies, right? And
Yeah.
if this is something that you notice in the shining that light of awareness on it, then it's something that you can do something about.
Yeah.
But it is one of the 20 things that comes up. So I think a lot of times these things are very subtle. And it's not that you're not aware, but they're not as powerful as full-blown anger or the ones we talked about last time, right? So denial is tricky. Denial is, by its very nature, you don't want to think about it, right? Like it's hidden.
So
Yeah, exactly. It is.
Yeah.
So the reverse is what I like. I like it when Geshe-la says, you should just be an open book.
Yeah.
It's just easier. And yeah. And that's why these confession ceremonies or these opportunities to do the four forces, where confession is a big part of it, is a useful exercise. It's a useful skill to have because it gives you something to do about things that are naturally arising, right? And when I say naturally arising, it's not that it's your Buddha nature. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how karma just rises, like it just pops, right?
And you have no.
Well, you
way
don't
to
have
stop
any
it.
control in the moment
Yeah.
until you get really, really good at the laws of karma, at your karmic management, which is what we're working towards. But until we're there, we are kind of at the mercy. It's like popcorn, right? But the beauty about karmic management is you work with the popcorn. You work with what's arising. And then as you start to practice, initially, I am going to warn you, it may feel like it's getting worse before it gets better. Because you're noticing for the first time, or you're actually trying to do something about it. So it can be really discouraging at the beginning. Because we all want instant gratification, right? Even with our karma. But trust me, it's not that you're getting worse. It's just that you're paying attention, and it's good to pay attention. Shine the light of your awareness on it, and the darkness has to go away. It has to.
And rejoice.
Yeah, rejoicing is a good one. Okay, so the next one, what number are we on?
11.
Okay, say Serna. Serna. Serna means stingy, cheap, not generous, tight-fisted. There's all sorts of words for it, right? It's like a form of possessiveness where you just want to keep things for yourself. Okay, the 12th one, say gyakpa. Gyakpa means puffed up, conceited. It's actually colloquial Tibetan for chubby.
Chubby?
Chubby, puffed up. Yeah, and what it means is that you're focusing on your own temporary good qualities and being puffed up about it. Yeah, like it's an ego. It's a type of ego. Yeah. Like to think that you're so beautiful or so smart or so, that like that song, I'm too sexy, right? And and the reason they say temporary is because we know it's going to pass, right? Like it's just a fact of being human. So gyakpa is when you're all that about it. So the next one, say ma depa. Depa means faith, and ma here is the negative. So it's a lack of faith. And it's interesting. This is translated as a form of laziness. It's a form of having a lack of admiration towards holy beings who deserve our devotion, who deserve our faith, just because you don't feel like it. You just don't feel like having any faith. Can't be bothered. So it's a lack of faith born out of laziness, actually. Yeah. And guess what the next one is? Lelo. It's one of those Tibetan words that most Westerners don't forget once they learn it, because it sounds like what it means. It means laziness. It means you're just laying low. Lay low. And, but do you guys know that the modern form of lay low is to be so busy you can't do your practice? Yeah.
Your Morocco talk was about
It was about that. Because when we say laying low, we think about being a couch potato, right? Or being a slug and just channel surfing. Well, that's one form of lay low. But the modern day lay low is when people are like booking themselves so chock-a-block, like I'm busy, busy, busy. I got people to see, things to do. And really it's just about denial. It's about distraction. It's about, right? It's about putting other things in the way of what you need to do, of what you really need to do to get to where you really want to go. So Geshe doesn't talk about that form, but I just throw that in because really in this room, I don't see it as the couch potato syndrome. I see it as, you're all going to be too busy doing, teaching, working, family, what have you, and it can be really hard to find time to practice, right? My teachers who are about to finish 3-year retreat said, "We're too busy in 3-year retreat, there's no time." They've joked about that, about having no time in 3-year retreat. But it's our minds, right? We can do that to ourselves. Yeah. Because a formal, intensive meditation retreat can be very busy. You got to be up by 3:30. You got to have your tea before a certain time, or you're not going to have enough time to do your pranayama and your yoga, and you won't have enough time to meditate. So you got to get going. Anyways, I'm exaggerating for effect, but you can actually whip yourself into a frenzy, especially if you only have less than a month to do it in, right? Or even if you have a month to do it in, it's like, oh my God, if I don't get my dharmas done by this date, then I'm not going to be able to do this. Yeah, we do that. Okay, lay low. Say the next one is, say, bak mepa. Bak mepa is a type of carelessness. It's a not being careful with your spiritual life. It's they say the best way to have bak mepa is to get drunk. Because then you're not going to be concerned about your spiritual life, right? You're not going to be mindful. You're going to more than likely put yourself in harm's way to yourself. You're more inclined to commit a non-virtue, right?
Tiredness will be also here because Geshe talks about if you don't have enough sleep
yeah, it's true. Sleep deprivation is a very, very but again, sleep deprivation due to carelessness would be to stay up too late watching TV. Or eating too much food when you know that you're just eating for sport. Then you're going to feel lethargic and not so good in the morning, right? And like that. So, yeah, it's some kind of carelessness. The next one, say, this is a hard one to pronounce, jenge. Yeah, it's that NG sound again. Jenge is forgetfulness. Good. That was very good, Sarah. It's a forgetfulness that is about losing focus. So this is when you... this is interesting. This is about losing focus on virtue. So say you're meditating. And you're meditating on... before you sit down to meditate, you set the object of your meditation as your lama. Okay, so when you sit down for the next 5 minutes or however long you're going to meditate, you're supposed to be focused just on them. But then you start thinking about all of the virtue you're going to do that day. And it can be virtuous. But your mind is now thinking, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to go cook dinner for this person, and then I'm going to do that. And if you're busy thinking about that, you have lost your focus of what you said you were going to do. And so that's a form of Jenge. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to lose your focus to useless things, distracting things that are taking you away from the virtuous object. It can be other virtuous things. But if the focus that you were supposed to have is one thing and your mind goes elsewhere, that's where this comes in. Very, very common in meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're meditating and then you're thinking, what's for breakfast? You know, like that's another one that often happens. But, and it's not like you just get a little distracted. You're way off, like by the time you realize that you're off. Yeah. So 17, say She Xing Maimba. So this is, She Xing Maimba is losing watchfulness. So the Jenge was forgetfulness, losing focus. And this one is losing your watchfulness. So you know what? These two things refer to things you may have heard about in meditation class. What is it called? Well, Sheishin you've heard about. You know, it's the watchdog. It's the red flag that goes off, right? Recollection and awareness. Recollection and awareness. So the awareness is the Sheishin. The awareness is the flag that goes up. Hey, you're thinking about the 5 virtuous things instead of your lama, right? Like that's the hey you, right? And then your recollection remembers what it is that you're supposed, brings your mind, your focus back. So the first one, the Jenge, is where you've lost your watchdog, where that flag doesn't even go up, okay? And then this one, Sheishin Mayimba, is where you don't even have the wherewithal to bring your awareness back to it. So,
So it's another form of forgetfulness?
Yeah, it's another form of lack of awareness. It's basically lack of awareness. It's where your mind wanders and it keeps going. It just keeps going. I've had meditations like that.
But the first one was that.
The first one is the Jenge is forgetfulness, losing focus.
Yeah.
And this one is not even being aware. So not even being aware.
Focus to begin with. Like
No.
Not even having an object at all.
Well, you had it, but you lost it, and you're not even aware you lost it.
Oh.
You're not around then.
That's right. And you know what? If you're tired, this could easily happen. Yes, Leonardo.
Did you say recollection was the Shenshin or the
Jenge. Jenge is the recollection, and Sheishing is the awareness.
Okay.
That's not how it's taught here, but I'm just relaying it back to your knowledge of ACI 3, the meditation course, because those are words that you hear in Sheishing is a mental function. It's the oh no, I might have gotten that backwards. No, that's right. The watchdog, the red flag, is the Sheishing. It's and the Jenge is the forgetfulness, and that's the awareness. Yeah, bringing your focus back. That's right. Thank you. Okay, almost done the 20. So the next one, say Mukpa. Mukpa is literally the Tibetan word for fog. Fog. How the weather has been the last, not today, but the last few days, it was like this, especially on Sunday, like the fog was almost down to the ground, right? But it was just this, and you could feel it. It's this heaviness. And there's this great English word, torpor.
Or
Torpor. Do you know what that means? It means a heaviness. It means like a lethargy. I just love the sound of that word, torpor. But it's what it means. It's I don't know, for me it's onomatopoeic. It just feels like what it sounds like. And it's this dullness of the body or the mind, as if you had a big meal of pasta or, you didn't get enough sleep. And it creates Geshe-la says it creates a stupid low level of mind. Yeah. It's self-afflicted. This is the thing, the stupid part is because it's self-afflicted, right? It's not because you've got a newborn and you have to stay up, right, to make sure they stay alive. It's not about that. So you're, the thing about this, the thing about, even though it's way down here, the danger about mukpa, the danger about this dullness, this heaviness, is that it is the fertilizer for the other afflictions to grow from. It's you're setting yourself up. If you don't get enough sleep, if you don't eat properly, if you're not getting, the proper nourishment, nutrition, you're just setting yourself up to have mental afflictions, When Geshe-la travels the world, he's very good about getting the proper amount of rest that he needs before teaching, things like that, like setting up your teaching your space. And it's good for all of you who do teach. Before you teach, you should always just kind of center yourself, do that little hollow body meditation or whatever, sing the emptiness chant, do something to set up your mind and your space so that you can be the perfect conduit and vessel from which to teach, right? And you don't have this mukpa. It's just setting yourself up. Okay, second to last one. Say Namyang. Namyang is a mental distraction. This is when you're distracted to pleasant objects that you're attracted to. And this is closely tied into liking things ignorantly.
What was it again?
Namyang is distraction towards a pleasant object, liking things ignorantly. And then the last one, say Gyupa. Gyupa. So these last several they happen mostly during meditation. Okay, so this one is when you're scattered, and it's like agitation, when you're unable to keep your mind single pointed. It's translated as scattering. And again, this can be on the virtuous object. This is actually very similar to the one I said before, where you should be thinking about one virtuous object and then your mind scatters off to the other ones. They're very, very, very related. The main difference, though, is the one that I was talking about before had to really do with awareness and recollection, and this has to do more with dullness and agitation. These last two that I just talked about, Namyang and Gyupa, are really talking about dullness and agitation. Okay? So those are the 20, and if you are doing the homeworks and quizzes, they say pick your 6, and so you don't have to memorize all 20, and you don't actually have to answer them in Tibetan at all, unless you're doing Tibetan track, in which case I wouldn't be able to mark your homework anyways, but I can find someone who can. There is actually an entire Tibetan track where you can download all of this in the original Tibetan script, and you do your homeworks, quizzes, and finals in Tibetan, and it can be marked that way. Also, I'm looking at Sevi because she's going to do it. Yeah, or next year. But but it's I find even in our broken Tibetan, it's just good. It's just a blessing to try and say the words and try and hear the syllables, and that's why I do encourage you to listen to the audio, because Geshe-la does give it correctly. Okay. Geshe-la asks an important question at the end of this last one, where you're not supposed to be scattered, right? He says, does that mean that you can't do more than one virtuous thing at a time? Should you just be single-pointedly focused? Or, does that mean you shouldn't be thinking of many, many virtuous things? And, the answer, of course, is, well, of course you should be. It's only when your meditation object, like when you set your meditation to be one thing and then you're thinking of many, that's not useful. However, as you progress through your spiritual path, the higher you progress, the more virtuous things you'll have the capacity for. Do you know the definition of Avalokiteshvara, the 1,000-armed deity? Well, each arm is doing something else, right? It's a beautiful meditation too, actually. If you're ever feeling overwhelmed or unable to handle all the tasks that you think you have in front of you, put yourself on your cushion. Just imagine that you've grown an extra arm to handle this one over here, and then you've grown another arm to do that, take that meeting over there, and you grew another arm over here, and while these two are doing it, this one's over there, and you are sitting like you just keep growing arms, It's actually very, very lovely. And if you get good at this, you will find in your world that, you will grow an arm and someone will be doing your flyers for you. And you'll be growing another arm and somebody will be putting up the website for you. And you'll be growing another arm and somebody will be setting up class for you. And, it works like that. So it's really, really cool. Because, as you progress higher, it's not that you're juggling thousands of virtuous deeds. It's all one virtuous activity, with just lots of little components to it, but it's one virtuous activity. So that's what we're aspiring to, right? It's a lovely meditation. I suggest you try it if you're ever feeling overwhelmed. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, but there's a point here that Master Shantideva. So if you've noticed along all of these afflictions and secondary afflictions that we've been talking about, they do all somehow relate back to those primary three, right? The gross ignorance. Remember the snake and the pig or the pig, the rooster, and the snake, right? So it's the basic ignorance, and out of the mouth of basic ignorance comes ignorant liking and ignorant disliking. So these are all various flavors of that, right? So Master Shantideva hits us with, so it's not that you shouldn't like things. In fact, and it's not that you shouldn't be attached to things. You should be very attached to the path. You should be very, very attracted and attached to your spiritual development. You should be very, very pushing away your mental afflictions. You should be hating your kleshas. So isn't that clever? These two tendencies that we naturally have arising in us, he says harness that, but use it for the right things. Like, don't waste your time on these things, or even worse, on those 6 that we talked about last time, which are actually 10, right? Really use that attraction tendency and apply it to your spiritual practice. And really use that aversion, that ignorant disliking, take the ignorant out of, and really knock the socks out of your mental afflictions. Like, just obliterate them, annihilate them, destroy them, right? Massive something of destruction weapons of mass destruction on your kleshas. That's what you're doing, okay? So that's what he says. They are the enemy that has caused you suffering since beginningless time. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about, is it possible to beat this enemy of the mind? Is it actually possible? Okay, so let's take a quick break, and I understand there are no more cookies, but there is chocolate that you can all share. Please open that and share that with everybody. And Joyce is back! There's red bean popsicles.
Wow.
I will try and find us a song. Okay, we're going to take a quick dance break.
Nice shirt. It's like so bright.
I'll never get lost in the clouds.
No, we're in the dark.
When I got hurt was when I was like so much younger. My mom, don't go there, he is.
My mom put me on a leash.
I found in the back.
Doesn't matter, she might be teaching.
One of us. Not really anymore. Soccer team couldn't really make it because, first of all, they weren't enough grade 9s. There were enough grade 8s for grade 9 being split.
Yeah.
Because last year ours was terrible. We had like the worst coach in the world, actually.
Okay, guys.
30 players on our team. Everyone made the team. So even we have some really good soccer players from our big leagues. So this is one guy.
Did we keep recording through the music break?
On our team.
Okay.
He from the halfway line on a free kick into the
Okay.
goal. And our coach says no.
All right, guys, we're back.
Kick. It's not supposed to be shot on goal, no goal.
It's still on, yeah. I hope everybody at home was dancing.
Are you finished?
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Okay, so actually, Master Shantideva does get into a really sweet part in his reading. If you and the readings are all available for free online. If anyone doesn't know how to find them, come ask me or ask any of the angels over here. They can tell you. He talks, because he just, before the break, we were just talking about how he was saying, like, wage war on your mental afflictions, right? And, like, just go all warrior on them. And so he does continue this war analogy. And he asks the question just to really drive the point home. Because we've been talking about all of these afflictions, right? And we've been talking about getting rid of them. So he says, okay, are these, like, normal enemies? Like, are these, like, if you were to wage war in the world out there, right, your enemies, even if you beat them, they could regroup. They could not retract, but what's the word when they go back to where they came? Retreat. They could retreat. I'm losing my English. Can't speak Tibetan, and I'm now losing my English. Yeah, like an enemy in the war games or whatever, right, would retreat, regroup, get stronger, and come out again. Is that what happens with your mental afflictions? And we're really about eradicating afflictions, right? We're talking about getting to a cessation of the mental afflictions. So Master Shantideva is basically saying, if you successfully eliminate your mental afflictions, no, they can't. But in order to get to that real understanding of no, they can't, we have to first think about, well, where could they possibly go? So he gives us 3 examples of where they could possibly go, and then proves that they can't come back, okay? This is really sweet. So the first one, say, suk sok, yul la mine. This means that the one place that your mental afflictions could live is in the outer world. Because isn't that what we think? Don't we think that the world out there is what pisses us off? Or the world out there is what makes us suffer? The people out there, the traffic out there, the economy out there, the weather out there, like everything is out there coming at us, right? That's what we think normally. And so if mental afflictions resided in the outer world, if it did, then anyone who walked through it would be afflicted, right? But we know that there have been Buddhas before us. We know that there are arhats. We know that there are people who have seen emptiness directly. And so, well, actually arhats, not aryas, because aryas can still have those other 83,998 afflictions, right? Because only 3 go, 97. 3 go when you see emptiness directly. But an arhat, what was the definition of an arhat? Remember? Yeah. What did they say? That's an arya, but what's an arhat? An arya is someone who has seen emptiness directly. But an arhat is even further along the path than an arya.
Eliminated mental afflictions?
Completely annihilated their mental afflictions. Yeah, cessations, right? Of their mental afflictions. So if mental afflictions lived out there, then even an arya would be afflicted, and it's impossible, right? By definition, an arya, it's impossible for an arya to ever be afflicted ever again. So the mental afflictions can't live out there. Well, they cannot.
So you say it can't go out of the world then?
So your afflictions cannot be based out there. As much as we like to believe it, as much as it appears that way, as much as it feels that way until we've seen emptiness directly, it can't. And the proof is because if it did, then Aryas would be afflicted. Because they would be as affected by the outside world as anyone. And they can't be. The second one, say Miksok, Wangbo, Lamine. Good Tibetan, you guys. This means that the afflictions abide in your sense powers? This is an interesting one. So, that first argument was that it can't live in the world out there, right? Well, what about in your sense powers themselves? So you see or you smell or you hear, right? Or you taste something. But could the affliction, so the actual object, this yule, there was a yule in there. Actually, that was in the first one. But the actual colors and shapes, right? And this is actually relating to arguments found in the Abhidharmakosha, but actually, let me back up. So the way we see things, the way the mind sees the world is that, no, let me back up even more. The way we experience things is partly, you can divide it into two parts, and this is how the Abhidharmakosha divides it. We can divide objects into the mind that sees them, and then in the sense object that allows the mind to see them. So you can, yeah, this is a bit slippery. So it's because of your senses that you can sense anything. You see things because of your eye consciousness. This is out of the Abhidharma. So in the Abhidharmakosha, it believes that your eye, your optical nerve and all of that is what allows you to see the object, the shapes and colors. It's what takes the data in. Mm-hmm. And then it's your mind that interprets it, right? This is the Abhidharma school. Like if you go to the highest school, we'll say that it's your karma that forces you to see blah, blah, blah. But anyways, let's just stick with the Abhidharma school, which is where Master Shantideva is holding this argument. So you can divide the world into the mind that sees or the mind that smells or tastes or whatever, and the sense that brings that to you. So he's saying because according to the Abhidharma school, we divide things this way. Does the mental affliction exist in the actual sense power? Like, does it hang out in your eye if you're seeing something that is causing you an affliction? Okay? I mean, he's getting that specific, and the answer is no. But it makes you think. Like, I've never actually, until I studied Master Shantideva, ever thought about my eye consciousness. But then if you actually think about it for a second, it's kind of cool, like, because we are so ruled by our senses. It is almost as if there's a separate consciousness, and there isn't. It's all a projection, but still, if you think about it, it does feel that way. Like we can be, because of something we see, we can be happy or sad or angry or, right? Like it can trigger that, it can be the delivery system through which that emotion arises or that experience happens. So according to this, is it in the world out there? No. Is it in your mind, or is it in the sense consciousness itself? And basically, we've already dealt with the mind. If you understand emptiness, if you understand that things are coming from you and not at you, then you cannot, your mental afflictions do not live there, okay? And then it automatically obliterates that third option, which is that could it live in the sense consciousness itself, in the sense power, in the eyeball, in the ear lobe, like, not the ear lobe, the eardrum, like, could it actually live there And the answer is no. Okay, so the I don't know if this is a homework question, but they say where the afflictions abide. They don't actually divide it into outer world, inner world, and sense consciousness. They divide it into outer world, your sense powers, and then the third one is actually the resolution of there's actually nowhere for them to go because you've eliminated all the possibilities. That's how Master Shantideva answers it. Okay. My logical mind wants to answer it as it's not in the external world, it's not in my sense powers, and it's not in my mind. Therefore, it's nowhere. But the classic argument goes, it's not in the outer world, it's not in my sense powers because my mind has already accepted emptiness, and therefore there is nowhere else for it to go. Okay.
Where is it?
They don't. The afflictions don't. They're gone. Once they're gone, they're gone.
Not hiding anywhere.
They don't retract.
Oh,
Build
after
up
we eliminated
and-
them, they're
That's
gone.
right.
Okay.
Yeah. They're not hiding
So
somewhere.
the only
to
reason
come
you
at us
had
again.
meditation is because you thought that things are coming at you. Once you
Yeah,
understand and see the emptiness directly and you start habituating,
that's right.
you realize that they were actually empty. They never existed.
And that's why even before your direct perception of emptiness, you can start to eliminate some of those 84,000 because you understand where they're coming from. At the end of the day, that's the only thing that's going to save your ass, because really, if you're having the remotest hint of an affliction, it means that somewhere in there you are not understanding the emptiness of whatever it is you're feeling. Can't be. Because if you did, you could not be having that emotion or feeling or experience, right?
And of course, you have the force of your karma too.
But it's the force of your karma that will also force you to understand this at a certain point. So,
Do
Yeah.
your homework.
that's right, do your homework.
Plant your seeds.
And it's because of understanding emptiness that you can reach a point where these afflictions will no longer exist anymore. Okay? See, because all of it, all of the secondary afflictions, all of the primary afflictions are predicated by a fundamental misperception. We misperceive our world. And I was telling you last time that Lamivana is starting to call this missed, as an MISSED perception. And I like that because we miss the fact that things are empty, right? Yeah. So when we do not understand our world, when we do not understand where things come from, where we mistake, and again, it is a karma ripening. So if that karma ripens for not being able to understand in the moment, then you are going to misunderstand. But you can know you're misunderstanding a split second later and do something about it, right? And not replant that seed by being angry or by being jealous or by being whatever, right? So it is possible. This is Master Shantideva's promise to us. It is possible to eliminate your mental afflictions and they will not come back. So Master Shantideva then gives us the secret for being able to see things that way, to eliminate our seeds for ignorance. And by the way, if you're born human, you were born with the seed for ignorance. That's why you were born human. So don't knock yourself, don't beat yourself up about, oh, I've got so much ignorant seeds. Yeah, that's why you're human, okay? But this human vessel is also your best vehicle for getting out of here, okay? So we have to work with this. He talks about the thing that can help us get the karmic energy that we need to propel ourselves along our path. And this is where we get into the meat of the Bodhisattva's Guide to a Bodhisattva's Way of Life. These are the 6 perfections, okay? And in Tibetan, say Parl tu Chimpa. In Sanskrit, Paramita. Paramita. Paral tu Chimpa is what the Tibetans translate paramita. You know, the Prajna Paramita, right? Perfection of Wisdom Sutras is where the 6 perfections also reside. But the paro tu chimpa, paro means other side, tu means to, chimpa means went to the other side, gone to the other side. That's another definition of nirvana, right? Gone to the other side of your afflictions, no more samsara, right? So these are, but it's interesting. Perhaps these should actually be called paral to chin j, not paral to chin pa, because chin j means takes you to. Because these are the activities that take you to perfection, but we just call them the 6 perfections. You're not actually perfected until you are perfect, which means enlightened. So only a Buddha, an enlightened being, would have perfected the perfections in their entirety. However, they are called perfections because these are the activities that get you to perfection. Many of our lamas like to call them the perfectionizers. So these are the activities that will get you there, okay? So the first one, I'm going to give these to you in Tibetan because you do know them in English. Say jimpa.
Jimpa.
Jimpa is the first one, giving. And this is, you can give material things, you can give dharma, you can give protection, and you can give love, right? So jimpa is the first one. Second one, say tsultrim. Tsultrim is the ethical way of life, or as we like to call it, kindness. This is about keeping your vows and avoiding all of the non-virtues right from your very basic 10, or the 6 from last time, which are actually 10, all the way up to your full tantric vows. Say supa. Supa is not getting angry. This is patience. But Geshe-la really likes not getting angry as opposed to, because patience kind of means you can wait for a very long time. This is really not getting angry when the time is absolutely ripe, when everything, if you didn't know this stuff, if you didn't have wisdom, if you didn't know about karmic correlations, you would feel absolutely justified in blowing up. And you don't? That is this supa, this not getting angry. That's the true definition. They say that this is actually the true tapas, the true spiritual fire is when you can remain not angry when everything conspires to be, like when it would seem, oh, just this one time it would be okay. It's not. And if that one time you can fight against it, even if you lose, in the fighting against it, you've really planted good seeds. Say tsundru, joyful effort. This is virya in Sanskrit. I love that word. This is about taking delight in doing things for your spiritual path. Samten, say samten. This is meditation or concentration. And then sharab is wisdom. And specifically, it's about understanding emptiness. Okay? So, because Master Shantideva is who he is, he asks one final question of us in this class. He asks, are the perfections mental? Or do they depend on some outer perfection, some outer display? Meaning, does it mean that, let's go with the first one, with Jimpa, giving, the perfection of giving. Is it only considered a perfection when there are no more poor people in the world? If you perfect your perfection of giving, will there no longer be any poor people in the world? No. And does it mean that you have to give away all your money? Not necessarily, right? No. It doesn't mean that you have to physically make sure that everyone around you has what they need before you can say your giving is perfected.
Yes.
Actually, no, because it's not in the physically, it's not in the physical manifestation. It's not in the outside world. It's not in that. It's in the perfection of your attitude, your obsessive desire to give. The perfection is not in the external, it's in the internal motivation. Okay? And they say the proof of that is, do you see poor people around you? Have there been Buddhas in the world? The definition of a Buddha is they exist beyond time and space, past, present, and future, which means Gautama Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, who lived 2,500 years ago, is here today, right? So you see poor people. Does that mean he never perfected the perfection of giving? Right?
So it's not dependent on external circumstances.
Nothing is.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's a good question because it really feels like it, right? It really feels like, well, that seems unfair. Like, if I get perfected, why are there still poor people?
Does Buddha see him as poor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do they see them as, they don't see a poor, like they don't see the person that you see on Skid Row as Bill Gates. They still see the being on Skid Row. They don't experience, the Buddha, does not experience any mental afflictions about it. But they certainly see what is, language is so hard because if I say to you, they see what is there, it sounds like it's external. And that's not true. They see that you see yourself the way you do. That doesn't mean you don't appear the way you do.
Yeah, because they see the ultimate reality.
They see both.
Deceptive at the
Exactly.
same time.
Exactly. But because they exist does not mean that you aren't what you're experiencing. Right? Yeah. This is where it gets tough. And this is where we can have a lot of arguments with the whole concept. But this is where debate is good. These are the types of things that you should bring to the debate ground and really work it out. Because at the end of the day, what we're trying to understand is our real understanding of the emptiness of things. And how can we have that truly function for us? Because it has to function for you or it's not going to work, right? But this is the thing. The external display is not what proves or disproves the perfection. Because it's not coming at you anyways. It's coming from you. So if it were as easy to give away all your stuff to perfect the perfection of giving, I could help you with that right now, okay? But that's not how it works. It's not. It's not how it works. The perfection is perfected in the absolute willingness, the absolute desire and willingness to give. And you know, very, very often giving what is needed is not necessarily giving what is wanted. And you have to be a pretty high level practicing Bodhisattva to know the difference, because a lot of times what we give is really what we want to give. What we feel someone else needs may not be what they really need, right? We've really got to be careful about what our motivation is in all of this. But this is why we practice. And you know what? Giving, even if it's a wimpy, mixed karma giving, is still better than not giving at all, okay? And remember all the forms that you can give. Just because you have no money does not mean you cannot give. And in fact, if you have no money and you want some, you must give. That's the only way you're going to ever get what you think you need. But you don't have to give, like even the way you give or what you give is not what you think if you don't have wisdom behind it. Does that make sense? Like you really, see, everyone can give time. Everyone can give support, love, affection, encouragement. You have all wisdom you can share at the coffee shop or wherever. You know what I mean? It's just, there is something you can give people. It's interesting because tonight, before I came here, I had a discussion with some pretty high-level executives in my workplace about they were discussing whether they should approve giving a certain amount of money to another institution. We are a nonprofit charity, and we have to be very careful about how we give away money that has been given to us. So it does need everyone's consensus. But they weren't arguing that fact. They were arguing whether we should give at all. And, and of course, I'm like, yes, we should give. And here's why. But I'm not about to make them, because they have the better interest of the organization at heart. But I was able to give them the karmic reason, and without even telling them that that's what it was. So whether they,
how did you say that?
I said, I said the real reason, not the real reason, I said the real cause of abundance is generosity. That's all I said. You don't have to say Buddha says the real cause.
Yeah.
I just said the real cause of abundance is generosity. And, we really have experienced abundance here, so it would be really lovely to share some of that so that we can continue to. Now, whether they bought it or not, it depends, on a whole lot of factors. But I managed to share that, and I gave Dharma, right? Like, so and I didn't even have to call it that. It's, and we have lots of opportunities to do stuff like that just in our normal lives. So, like that. So, Master Shantideva does talk about a couple more examples, like, but it's the same thing, like, is the perfection of ethics when no one in the world ever gets killed again? Like when nobody dies. And is the perfection of patience when there's no more angry people around you? The thing is, it's not so much that there aren't people expressing anger. You will never feel it as anger in that way that you have to respond in kind. You will, right? You will actually probably initially feel it more as compassion for this being who has to express themselves in that way. But I bet even later on, you will experience as compassion, just pure compassion for them, and be able to give what's perfectly needed in the moment. So the perfection of the perfections is not in the external objects or manifestations. It's in the internal attitude. It's in the perfecting of your willingness, and where it's not even a thought, where you're not even having a debate with yourself. Like the thing that arises is the desire to give or be ethical or be patient or be joyful or whatever is, needed in the moment, right? Like it's not even, like it's so forced on you by your karma that it's the only reaction you could possibly have.
Mama Roger said that the clue is if you need to convince yourself, then it's not a perfection.
That's a good way to say it. Yeah. So that's class. Any questions? Yes.
So I want to come back to the number one beginning.
The troa, the anger?
No?
No?
Perfection.
Oh, perfection, giving. Sorry.
So from what I understand, willing to give everything you have in order to perfect.
Yes. But it's not about willing yourself in, like if it's against your will, like if you don't feel that way, it's not about forcing that feeling. It's about cultivating your ability to be giving so that it's naturally arising in you.
Yeah. Well, so that means if you perfected that perfection, you are able to give everything you have because somebody needs it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. You are able to.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But just because you are able to doesn't mean that you have to in order for that perfection to be perfected.
It's very slippery.
It is. It is.
Because if you're really willing, that means you can just give it. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what happens?
Yeah, but
You know
not
what
for
happens though?
benefits or-
Have I given you an example of wanting to give money to a street person but not having it on me and then trying to go find them when I actually have it and they're not there anymore? Like my willingness is there and they're not there, right? But it's because my willingness was there that I don't need to give it anymore. That happens too. It's funny how that happens, but that happens to me every single, like in the moment, like I don't have anything, right? So, like I might be going into somewhere where I know that I will come out with something I can give them, and I purposely get the thing to give them, and I can't find them. That has happened to me many an occasion. Yeah. But it's the willingness, yeah. And then I have to wonder, okay, was I actually really willing or was there some hesitation, right? But we work with where we are. And it's in the practice. You know what's really beautiful is you'll notice that after you start practicing for a while, you will start to, it'll be this forcing. Like your initial reaction will be to say, well, of course we should give that. You know, not in oh, is it political or is it strategic or whatever? You know, like your mind doesn't even go there. Like your mind just goes to the willingness. Yeah. Any other questions? How you doing, Dave? It's a lot. I know. It's a lot of Tibetan. It's okay. So. Go. Yeah. So yes, Michael.
Actually, I wanted to go back to I wasn't sure what you were saying about cessation of mental afflictions because you said 2, and then there was a last that I don't know if there was 2 or 3 after.
Oh, when you have your DPE, when you have your direct perception of emptiness.
Is
There,
that, what's
yeah.
that third one?
The third one is the one that most people forget. So the 2 that go is doubt in the path and thinking that things are self-existent. You no longer question whether anything, like you understand that everything is empty without a single doubt, without a shadow of a doubt. You know for certain that things are empty. And you also know for certain that this path is right for you, that the spiritual path. The third thing that goes is this really unusual belief that esoteric, aesthetic hardship is going to be in any way spiritually helpful to you. So like, for example, doing extreme fasts or standing on one leg for 10 years, or the classic example given in scripture is apparently in ancient India there was a practice where if you threw yourself off a cliff and strategically impaled yourself on a trident in 3 places that you would get to enlightenment. Yeah. And, you know, it makes me wonder about some extreme religious practices we might know of in modern day where they think that certain destructing of one's body is going to get you to a higher state. There are there are practices like that in many, different doctrines. So they say that when you have your direct perception of emptiness, that you totally know that doesn't work, because you also totally understand that this is the vessel by which you are going to reach your enlightenment, that's going to get you there. So you wouldn't do anything to harm it. Yeah. And even, if you even study classic Buddhism, Lord Buddha, even if you don't even get into the tantric teachings, if you stay with the sutra teachings, Lord Buddha was a prince. He left the palace after he saw, like, his charioteer took him on some road trips, right, out of the palace, and because he was very, very sheltered. And he saw a sick person, an old person, and a dead person. And it was the three main symptoms of samsara that he finally was awakened to, that propelled him, motivated him to leave the palace and pursue his spiritual study. And the first thing he did was to go study with a group of ascetics. And, they fasted, and they were all emaciated and really, really tight in their methodology, and it didn't get him there. And he actually broke that and it's the famous lesson of the lute, where I think someone brings him a bowl of milk or something, and he's taught how a lute, if it's too tight, the strings will break, and if it's too soft, it won't play. You have to just have it tuned just right.
And say the story goes when he was sitting by the river somewhere.
Yeah, it's by the river.
I don't know what they call it, but like canoe or whatever that times they say.
Like a raft or something. Yeah, and they were talking,
the
right?
Was trying to,
yeah.
The student asked
That's right.
how to play, and the master told him if you keep it too tight,
yeah,
then
the string will break.
If you keep it too loose, then it won't work.
Yeah.
So at that moment, as he was pursuing that,
that's right.
He gets this.
He has an epiphany that his practice is like that. Yeah, he's the lute that is being strung too tight.
A young girl comes with the bowl of rice to offer him.
Yeah, that's right.
He breaks his ascetic practice.
Yeah. But then he also decides that he's going to get there through meditation. And he commits, like an act of truth. He sits under the Bodhi tree, right? And he really, makes that affirmation, and then they say the test of the Maras, and all of that happens. So it's even in the sort of open story of Lord Buddha, there is this example where he himself went through the decadent, the royal phase, and then the austere extreme phase, and then came to the middle to find the balance in meditation. So back to the argument that we started this class with. You gotta learn your stuff, but then really sit with it. Let it really come to you in silence and practice. So that's all.
Those 5 ascetics was his first disciples.
And do you know who those 5 ascetics were even earlier? They were the mother lion who was about to eat her cubs, and he was a prince in an earlier life who fed himself to them. Yeah, that's a Jataka tale.
When he jumped.
Where do you find those? Yeah.
Well, they're kind of woven into a lot of our Book Jimpa series of studies, but where you can find some of them online, and they're usually told as children's stories. But you can find a lot of them online. They're beautiful, beautiful,
They're
beautiful.
all like Buddha's past life stories?
They're all Buddha's past life stories. Yeah, they all are. If any of you haven't heard the Jataka tales, they are stories of Buddha's previous lives, and they're all morality tales. They're like Aesop's fables. They're all about what not to do, and inevitably the story's about him somehow. Although he's usually like the regal royal something or another in them, right?
Like a fairy tale.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, but they're really quite lovely. Yeah.
Is there a particular author?
No.
Just English translation.
Yeah, English translations of the
You know where
Jataka
you can
tales.
find them at buddhanet.com or org. They have-
He knew that, right?
Jataka, Jataka, Jataka tales. Yeah. Okay, let's dedicate. Oh, just one thing. If you guys want to work on your karma, just in case you want to work on your karma. We're gonna have a karmic tune-up 2-hour session here on Saturday morning from 10 till noon.
Yeah.
So what does tune up mean?
Tune-up is like, when you tune up a car.
Yeah, I know, but in the context of this.
Same thing. We're gonna tune up your understanding, and
So we're gonna practice, or we're gonna have the class, the Dharma class, and then practice. How it's gonna work?
it's gonna be a little bit. It's gonna be like a class, but it's going to be depending on who shows up. It will be some discussion. I'm going to review the karmic correlations and the basics of it. But then really with the tune-up, I want it to be a working session where you guys bring whatever it is that you're working on and how you've been working on it. And we can workshop how to tighten it up, how to, if it's not working, how to fix it. If it's coming along, but maybe you're getting discouraged because a lot of stuff is coming along, how to perhaps prioritize or just clean it up a little, and maybe your biggest karmic problem isn't your biggest karmic problem anymore. Then maybe it's how best to shift that, like that. It's just, but basically it's about dealing with whatever is going on for you right now, right here. And the most disturbing, the most challenging. But I'd also like you to guys, if you are coming, to think about what's really working and how are we going to perpetuate that too. Okay? So both ways. And if you've never ever come to a karmic management workshop before, we'll do a bit of a review. But it's really, it's more practical. It's not so much the philosophical. It's going to be really more about, like, let's fix our stuff. Like, what can we be doing to make it better? Okay, thank you. Buki Juxing Mei Tok Tramri Rabling Shi Nyande Gampadi Sange Shindu Mikte Uwal Gidro Kunam Dak Shingla Chupashok Iram Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami Dikewokun Sunam Yashe Zotzokshin Sunam Yashe Leijunwei Dampakuni Toparsho. Thank you, everybody.